A year ago.
Yeah.
I'm Dara. It's my first day at Uber. This is a company in crisis. What was the first thing you did when you got to the office on your first day?
The first thing I did was meet people, listen. You know, it's for me to understand what the brand was, but more importantly, what the people behind the brand and the service and how they saw the world and how they viewed this incredible crisis that the company was going through. And how we could together go through it in the right way. That for me, listening to my team, listening to a couple of levels deeper, listening to some employee resource groups, lady engineers, et cetera, who had been through some difficult times. That was important for me.
Was there like a certain meeting that just stuck with you from that day?
There were so many, but for me, the leaders of women at Uber, and you know the duality of the feelings of we are here because we believe in this company and we believe in the brand, but as people who are responsible for building this company, we don't think that we yet represent who we truly are. You know, we are arming cities, people all over cities with the power of mobility and transportation and making it available to everybody, and we're a force for good, and the world isn't seeing that, and how can we make sure that the world sees that? And also, how can we make sure that our culture internally is a culture that is truly diverse and inclusive and allows everyone to succeed? And so there was listening to those voices and understanding that and communicating back that, hey, it's going to take all of us together to make this company what it can be. Was really the big start for me.
You must have been afraid though, because you have this great reputation. By the way, I think it's interesting that you're kind of like the second CEO, right? Like you're kind of like you date the wrong person, then you got to get to the right person. I feel like you're kind of the second CEO that's brought in some of these situations.
I hope so. Yeah.
To kind of clean up some of the mess, but it was. You must have been afraid because, as a journalist covering this company, I mean, there was no shortage of pretty bad things happening between Susan Fowler and that blog post that essentially, set off this whole, change in Silicon Valley for sexism. There was, so many bad things that happened, and you took the call to come in. I mean, be honest with me. Like, was part of you kind of like, this could make or break my great reputation I had for 13 years at Expedia?
It's the thought entered my mind, but. I come from a background of my family leaving Iran and losing everything that they had. And we rebuilt from there as a family together and as a collective and a group. And when you personally experience rebuilding from losing everything, you realize that fear isn't going to help you one way or the other. And you don't get that many chances to do something great. And I believe that this company can be a force for good, can really change cities and how we move and be a strong environmental advocate. And you just don't get, as an individual, you don't get that many chances to be a catalyst for positive change. And that comes with fear and that comes with challenge. But I've seen what it looks like to lose everything. And you know what? It sucks. But then you come back and you rebuild. And this is a risk that that's worth taking for me professionally. And a year later, I'm really happy I'm here.
I saw your mom say something. She said they were asking the biggest values that were instilled in you. And she said, be humble and be ethical. I thought the be ethical part was pretty interesting. You don't hear parents just say, ethics, something that was kind of ingrained in you from an early age. How did she instill that idea of ethics into you when you were younger? Do you have any specific examples?
For me, actually, the experience that really marked me was my father, and we would go to these factory tours. We had a big manufacturing concern, and seeing all the employees come up to him and the respect that they treated him with and the respect that he treated them with and the way that he spoke to them as equals, as person to person. He wasn't the boss. He wasn't kind of this big removed person up on a throne. That really marked me. And he brought to bear this humility and this kind of ethical way of treating folks, in not using power to your advantage. That's the thing that stuck to me, which is, he always took incredibly serious the position that he was in, and never took advantage of it. And I think has carried over for me. The humility is incredibly important, because humility actually allows you to some extent, always ask questions and never get overconfident. There's a good part of confidence. You want to be confident, you want to push forward, you want to reach, but overconfidence can really backfire on you, because then you're not as curious about all the challenges and maybe the things that you're doing wrong. So the combination of humility and ethics, I think, bring a lasting enterprise, whether that's a family or a business. Those two are really important to me in life.
I saw at one point your mom talking about how at one point the FBI came to your door in Terrytown, this is when you'd moved over, and said your family was going to be deported. How did that shape you when you were younger? How does that shape you as a leader now, especially in this political environment where we're dealing with some things we haven't dealt with in a long time?
My mom did a great job protecting us from those issues, but for me, it has created a true thankfulness for what we have here in the U.S., because we were truly lucky to come to this country during a time when immigrants were welcome, and we almost lost that opportunity. So one is I understand what it's like to be different, and I understand what a prize we have here as American citizens. And I very much want to create an environment and help create a country where we do welcome people of different backgrounds who have a chance to succeed here.
You said the American dream is the greatest brand on earth.
Yeah.
Do you think that brand is being tarnished?
I think it is at this point. I think that we have always been seen within the international community of a country, an immigrant nation that was welcoming, that created the opportunity for success for anyone and everyone, regardless of background. And I think that reputation is being tarnished. And I think as a country, that there was always the view that there was the Constitution and these guidelines about human rights were something that we held dear and something that we would not compromise, even though that compromise might have helped the country. And this is a personal opinion, but I think the direction that we're going in a little bit is unfortunate.
So what's your role and responsibility as a leader? Because increasingly I see that a lot of people behind closed doors in Silicon Valley are saying certain things, but when it comes to it, you guys have multi-billion-dollar companies. So what is what are decisions you make now that maybe you wouldn't have made in a different political climate? Can you give me anything specific about how you as a leader have kind of changed in this new era?
I have to tell you, it's an area that makes me uncomfortable. That this is not something that they teach you in CEO training school.
What's that?
And it's a CEO taking his or her personal beliefs and translating them into the actions of a company. Because in the end, I'm here to build this company. I'm here to serve our constituencies, our drivers, our riders, our customers, and ultimately our investors. So why should I let my personal feelings get in the way or affect the direction of the company? But I do think that as it relates to issues that are close to our business, many of our driver partners are immigrants that have come to this nation. It is part of the agenda of this company to provide an environment of success for them. So where these issues come up that affect our business, that affect our constituencies, that's where I feel more free to speak out. And then sometimes, it's a personal feeling, and this is a profession in the end, and sometimes you should keep it to yourself or keep it to dinner conversation. But those this public-private kind of borders, they're blurring.
Yeah.
And I think it's a relatively uncomfortable time for CEOs, and we got to figure out how to change it. I'm figuring out as we go.
Like, is there a company you wouldn't do business with?
Sure.
Like what?
Sure. I don't know the example, but listen, these are, you have to make ethical choices both in your personal life and your business life. And this is a company that deeply cares about our set of values, and the number one value that you're going to hear around these halls is we do the right thing, period. Now, we say period, we don't explain it because we trust our employees to kind of hold that flag. And you've got to do your best in every situation. Hopefully we'll get it more right than wrong.
I've asked a lot of CEOs this question.
I hope the comparison's okay.
No, it's been interesting to hear what all you guys have to say. What do you think is the single most important ethical question we must ask, tech leaders must ask when it comes to the future of this intersection of tech and humanity?
I mean, how are you going to help? How are you going to make society better? What are you doing actively? It's not just about making money, but you want to, obviously we're business and we're trying to make profits for investors, but how is your company going to make the world a better place? And for us, we are bringing mobility to everybody everywhere in these urban cities of the world. And we've gone from a world of the car owners being the only ones who are truly mobile. And I think mobility brings freedom, mobility brings opportunity, and we are building a service where you don't have to be able to afford a car in order to get around, in order to have access to everything that this world and these cities can offer. That's what we're about, and I think we can make money doing it, but ultimately we are making these cities a better place to live for everyone in the cities.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, having covered tech for all these years, I'm looking, and I've always been such an optimist on technology, and I'm looking at the last couple of years and thinking, oh my God, because this idea of are you making the world better? I think people are genuinely questioning if Silicon Valley is doing what they promised us, which is to connect the world, to make it better. Do you think we get on top of this? I mean, look at Facebook. You think about Facebook, this is a company that's business is built on connecting the world, but on our data and on our platform, and we're all looking at that. You look at Uber, and eventually, a lot of these jobs will be replaced by autonomous vehicles. You guys are doing that already. So where is this fine line? I mean, I know it's a broad question, but it certainly seems like we've listened and we've said, you guys have said, trust us for a while. And I think a lot of people don't have that trust.
Well, I think it's fair to say trust but verify. And I think that this world is becoming more and more transparent, and we have to explain ourselves more actively to society because society deserves that explanation. I think that we've come from a world where we are technologists and we have built platform. Our platform is a transportation platform, Facebook's platform is a digital connection platform, et cetera. And I think the hypothesis in the past was, well, we're building a platform and there are good people and bad people, and we don't want to, we're not responsible for what they do on the platform, we're just building the platform. And by the way, we didn't want to be responsible because we don't want to be the censor. We don't want to tell you what to say, et cetera. It was an ethical decision, I believe, early on, of our saying we're going to build a platform and we're going to let you be you, however you want to be. But these platforms can create superpowers, right? If you communicate something in the old world, you communicate it to 5 people. These platforms allow you to communicate to 1 million. And that realization has created, I think, now the responsibility for all of the platform builders to take responsibility for the content on your platform. For us, as a transportation company and a mobility company, our responsibility is safety. We want to make sure that if you are within the Uber platform, you're safe, the driver's safe, the rider's safe, and we've made safety a top priority, and we're investing millions of dollars in that priority, and we're being very transparent about it as well. So this is a new age.
Sure.
These platforms are becoming too important, and the platforms are extending into every part of our life and creating superpowers within them. And as a result, we've got to be transparent about what the rules are, and we do have to take more responsibility.
What's hard on your side, and I'll say this having covered Facebook for all these years, is now taking responsibility for the platform. This is not something anyone here in Silicon Valley wanted to do. Now that that's happening, there are all these nuanced, complicated issues that are maybe hard to put into a soundbite. But because I have you for I think at least 15 more minutes, take me through some of those nuanced issues. I mean, with Facebook, obviously it's with speech and what counts as hate speech and what's not. With safety, when it comes to defining safety, Safety's obviously been a huge issue. I know CNN's reported quite a bit on this. I know you guys have made changes. You guys are putting out a transparency report.
We are.
What is some of the nuance there? What are you guys struggling with when it comes to, what are you defining? Take us into the room, to the conversations that we probably need to understand a little bit better to see as you guys take more responsibility for this.
One is about quality. It's closely connected with safety, but essentially we are now being much more active about looking at the quality of our drivers, both in terms of their ratings, but also how they drive. Are they driving in a safe way? And if your quality is not up to par, or there are complaints about you as a driver partner, then we will contact you. It's not some computer making decisions, but there'll be a signal, and then we contact you. And if it happens a couple of times, we will look to take you off the platform. We are effectively then not allowing someone to make a living on a platform that should be open. Listen, our platform is about opportunity, and part of it is anyone can come onto our platform and can make a living or make a side gig, et cetera. But you can earn, and we're open. Mm-hmm. So how can we be open, but how then do we control quality and safety, and who's making that decision?
Right.
This driver partner can drive, this driver partner can't. Those decisions, we don't want a machine making a decision, although there are some guidelines. Ultimately, it's a human decisions, and humans are flawed. Another example for us is we really believe in access. And in a number of developing markets where credit card penetration isn't as high as it is here, we accept cash. And we accept cash because, again, we want to make mobility available to as many people as possible. There are some data patterns where there are more incidents in certain parts of the city, not great parts of the city. You see more incidents between driver partners and riders who pay cash. So are we about access? We want to make sure that someone who lives in a less fortunate part of town that doesn't have access to public transportation, who may not have bus service going through there, we want to make sure they have access to mobility and transportation. And by the way, just because they don't have a credit card, should we, mark them and say, well, this is a person who may have more negative incidents than a person who has a credit card. These are issues where we use data, we use human judgment, but ultimately you do your best with those two to come to the best conclusion for the network, for our driver partners, and for our riders. But, that combination is still fallible.
How about, even as a woman, I think, how do you define what happens to if a woman complains, right? You guys have this transparency report that's coming out 2019, is
2019,
2019. Yes. How do you guys define what one, by the way, this is not just a conversation at Uber, this is also a larger conversation for our nation, right? How do you define what one person says is something, and you guys are going to have to categorize it. Has that been difficult?
It has been difficult. We're working with a number of folks who specialize in this area, nonprofits, et cetera, who think about women's safety. And have deeply embedded themselves there. And so we're really taking guidelines there from external experts here, because we don't pretend to be experts. Over a period of time, we'll get better. But that's an area where we think we should take guidance.
How about, let's go to self-driving cars and kind of the future.
Yes.
This narrative around tech is uncertain. People are worried that their jobs are going to disappear. So what do you say? Inevitably, this is going to be the future. So what do you say to the drivers who say, Dara, I'm afraid that I'm going to become irrelevant?
I think, first of all, I'd say I understand the fear. But I passionately believe this, that there's this drama in the press, which is machines are going to replace humans. And my experience every single time is that machines and humans are the thing that's superior. They're better than machines alone, and they're better than humans alone. When we move to a self-driving world, self-driving technology for a long time is not going to work in every single use case. If there's a airport drop-off on pickups, I'm sure you get dropped off and picked up at an airport. Good luck for a machine to figure out exactly how to get there, or if you're getting a drop-off in a gated community, et cetera. The promise of autonomous is that it's going to bring the cost per mile of transportation on Uber, which right now is about double the cost of car ownership per mile, to essentially the cost of car ownership. We today are less than 0.5% of miles driven on a global basis. When autonomous brings that cost down, we believe that we can replace car ownership itself. And in that world, we think we can be 20 to 30% of miles driven. So this is not a company whose goal is to double in size. This is a company who we think we can, grow 20 times bigger, 40 times bigger. I still believe in a world where we're, let's say, 20 times bigger, 20% of the miles are going to have to be driven by humans. The machines will take the simple 80, but there's always going to be that 20% case that's more complicated, that has some nuance, where humans are going to drive, and there'll be 20% of a market that's 20 times bigger. So we still think, when I look forward to this company 10 years from now, we think we're going to need double, triple, quadruple the number of driver partners than we have today.
This has always been a fascinating question to me, and I know a lot of people are trying to work on it, but who will code the decisions a self-driving car makes? I'm sure you get asked this, but is it you? Is it someone else? Who, or will the engineers here be responsible for coding these cars to make these decisions that are life or death in situations? Just let's go through it. What do you think?
So engineers here, or in Pittsburgh, where we have our autonomous group, are going to be coding, but they will be coding to industry standards. These tough decisions that you have to make between a crash or staying on the road, safety in general, we believe is going to be a classification that should be industry-led. It'll be based on states, countries, what they think the right definition of safety will be, and we will follow those standards. And I think that the industry should come together to follow those standards.
Is the industry doing that?
They're starting to. So we are trying to get an industry group together. There was a study on safety done, for example, by RAND Corporation. We're trying to bring a collective of industry, government, regulators together to start to form these standards. And I can't tell you exactly what those standards will be, because it's not going to be us. It's going to be everyone together. What I can tell you is that an autonomous world is going to be safer. Sure. Right now, there are 40,000 automotive fatalities in the US alone. They were going down, they're going up now because of that evil cell phone that we have.
Right.
Over 1 million deaths on a global basis. Autonomous technology is going to bring those fatalities and accidents down over a period of time. And as we're moving through that journey, we're going to look for industry-led guidance on some of the tougher moral questions.
What kind of regulation do you think would be the good kind of regulation for self-driving cars? We talk about, I know a lot of times the government, if we all watched the Facebook congressional testimony with senators asking questions, and I think a lot of us thought, oh my God, they don't actually have an understanding of technology. That was scary. Yeah. So I think a lot of them are looking to tech to try to come up with the right type of regulation. So what kind of regulation do you think will be the right kind of regulation for self-driving cars?
Well, I think that there are many regulatory authorities. NHTSA, for example, National Transportation Safety Authority here in the U.S. So there are many experts in the field. So I think it's got to be a combination of the experts in the field, hopefully federal government, so you have one standard, and industry coming together to define what the safety metrics are. When is it that a student autonomous driver can get on the road alone? Those are very important questions, and I think they should be defined by a combination of regulators, governments, and industry.
You've talked about Uber as a platform in 5 to 10
Yes.
years. So let's look to the future. We are with one of the most significant leaders when it comes to the future of transportation in cities. What does a city look like in the next 10 years? Where are we? Are there flying helicopters? You just give us the vision. What does this look like?
Well, I'll paint it through your picture.
Okay.
First of all, hopefully you won't own a car. You'll come to Uber, and if you're looking to get to work, you'll essentially come to us, and we will give you the choice of whether you want to take regular Uber, whether you want to take a black if you're feeling good today, you want to pool with someone. But we're also going to show you, hey, this is a bus stop that's next to you, and a bus is going to be coming in 6 minutes from now. You can take the bus today, or you can take an electric bike or scooter today as well. Or if you're going to the airport and traffic is bad, we will give you the option of biking to a heliport or a VTOL port and take an air taxi to the airport because today you don't have the time. We want to be that A to B solution for you and to give you every single choice. Some of the choices are going to be run by us. Some of them are going to be run by public transport. And essentially every single time we want to be solving for you. If you want to get from point A to point B in the morning, you want to come home while you're driving home, we may shoot you a note and say, hey, do you want to Uber Eats and for dinner? We want to use context and location to come up with the best solution for the individual. Ultimately, we think that'll be better for cities. We think traffic is going to go down. We think personal electric vehicles are a very important part of the future. And ultimately, we want to partner with cities, both on the data front and the electrification of the grid and getting more and more people to share transportation to get to what we think is going to be a much, much better environment.
Going back to some of the questions about women and the culture at Uber, I think I asked you this before, but I want to ask it on camera because I think it's important. What Susan Fowler and what she did and really was putting out something that needed to be put out there about culture in Silicon Valley and some of the stuff you guys don't seem to see, right? And I think it helped put it to the surface. What would you say to Susan Fowler?
I think I'd say that she did good. You know, it must have been tough for her to come out like that. Must have been painful to some extent because I think it felt like she loved the Uber mission. You know, people here are very mission-led, but I think she was a part of a wave of change that has been difficult for this company. It's been difficult all over, but it's an incredibly important wave. And I think that, you know, what I'm hoping is that we can finish what she started.
You know, what I worry about being in the inside circles, kind of behind the scenes in Silicon Valley, is the things people don't say out loud, right? Mm-hmm. And you hear this stuff, I'm sure. You know, I've heard a lot of people, they don't want to meet with a woman at a certain time. Big companies saying it's just not worth it when there's so much, you know. What are we not allowed to say about the women's movement, about some of the changes, the diversity push? Like, what are we not allowed to say?
I think, listen, what you're not allowed to say is an executive saying he doesn't feel safe having dinner with a woman because doesn't know whether or not he may say something wrong once in a while. Like, I do think I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say stupid things, and I need to get feedback. That was dumb. Learn, get better, right? And I think that we're at a particular point in time where we don't have a lot of understanding for mistakes or mistaken views, especially as they pertain to gender or race, et cetera. And I think that you got to make mistakes to learn. So if there's one thing that I'd wish for is for there to be more open discourse, exactly like you said. What is it that you're not saying? For there to be open discourse, for you to say what's in your mind, but you're not sure if you should come out there, and for that discourse to ultimately help us get to a better place as a society. Listen, there's a pendulum swing right now, and I think what's happening is incredibly important. It's ultimately going to be good, but when you're going through periods of change, there's going to be pain. But it's this painful time when lots of people are going to make mistakes, where hopefully we will settle in a better place 3 to 4 years from now. I know at Uber, we are getting better at recruiting women, and we're getting better at developing women and underrepresented minorities. We're not nearly where we want to be, but progress is being made, and sometimes progress is hard. As
a social media user, I know that my mental health, this is embarrassing to admit to anyone, including on camera, the CEO of Uber, but my mental health, if I'm posting too many Instagram stories, like I'm not in a good place. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like one of those, like if life looks really, really good, like life might actually be pretty bad. And I think I represent like normal people outside of your bubble. I
don't know, so, are you a normal person?
I mean, like whatever.
I
represent like the general public, right? Yes. So I worry about this all the time. And you have 4 children.
Yes.
How are you going to handle their social media? Are you a little concerned over their use?
I'm definitely a little concerned, but you got to let them make their mistakes. That's how you learn. You know, it's the deep learning happens not when someone tells you what to do, but when you screw up and you fall down and you feel it. And that's what embeds. Part of growing up, I was an idiot sometimes, right? But you learn and you figure your way out. Lots of ways. When I was a kid, I didn't like my last name, so I would introduce myself as Darren K, right? Because you say Dara Khosrowshahi, what? Dara Khosrowshahi, what? And Darren K. I became this alter ego. Dumb. But that was me figuring out where to go, and that was me not being comfortable with my identity at the time because I didn't want to be this other.
But you didn't have all these fake others showing their fake lives to you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's even more challenging for children because they have this whole painted picture and filtered picture coded here in Silicon Valley. Sometimes I think you guys are engineers with ones and zeros, and you're kind of like, wait, humans are doing certain things. I don't know. I wonder. It's got to be a little more complicated.
It's definitely more complicated. And that's what I'm talking about, which is you're building a platform, and it's cool. As an engineer, how strong should you be in terms of then what people do with your platform? And I think these are, listen, I think that this awareness is a good thing, but I think that the answers aren't so easy, right? It's, on the other hand, you could say you're empowering a young woman to express herself to the world. Isn't that a great thing, right? And right now, fortunately, when I see my kids post, they're pretty good. But where this all shakes out, I think is TBD.
Where do you fail? I know we talk a lot about success and all that, but where for you as a leader, and if you could come up with something specific, I always try to push. You guys are all in these high seats, and people look at it as if it's that it's easy. I think a lot of people don't understand the kind of messy middle and the way you get to certain decisions. If you could just open us up into your failures, and if there's anything specific you could tell us.
Sure. So in other words, I can't use my talking points for this answer?
Yeah, that was actually what I was hoping that you would do. I know you guys are looking to make transportation a better world, all that kind of stuff.
Yes,
but let's moving apart from that. Let's get a little bit gross. Where have you failed?
I failed plenty.
Mm-hmm. Give us a specific example.
I'd say the number one failure point for me is the because Dara said project. Right? You've got to be very careful in my position, in that anything that you say is the weight of our words as leaders are heavy, and what I've realized is that even though I'm the CEO of the company, I'm nothing without the belief of my team. And once in a while, I've tried to get to a shortcut of no, this is what I want, just do it. And while that sounds good as a Nike logo, in the real world, you need people who truly believe, and I actually have to sell my vision and make it the vision of the company, because only when I've got the passion, the all-in passion of my team, do they then, does it become theirs, and do they then build something that's even better than I could have ever imagined. So I have a couple of times gotten impatient and said, no, I want this.
Like when?
Just build it. A couple of projects here on, they're little pieces, but then people don't, it's not theirs, they don't own it. And when you don't own something, you don't treat it as well. And so sometimes you can, as a CEO, you can use your authority to say, go, but it's doomed to failure unless it's your team that says, no, we want to go.
When we look back at this moment in time, how do you think we're going to define this era of technology?
I think it will be one of the greatest eras of change, and it's when technology companies truly understand that we are one and intertwined with society. And I think that tech leaders become real leaders and they grow up, and I'm in the middle of it. But
you seem like a grown-up. I will say, a lot of other folks, you're the number 2 CEO they bring in. Not that you're not a number 1. You're the person they bring in to fix when
I hope so, if I do my job.
When kind of the teenagers, run amok, right? But you do have, it's been fascinating for me to see some of these leaders who I've known since they were in their early 20s grow into these problems that are, you guys are at the helm of democracy, safety, every single thing, because technology is no longer a beat. It's kind of this underlayer to society. Do you? I have, you have faith in kind of your who you are, but do you have faith in some of the other leaders in Silicon Valley that we're looking at who are dealing with a different set of problems, but problems that will most certainly shape humanity?
I have faith in who I am, but while I may seem comfortable here today, I'm not comfortable in my seat. I'm doing my best. I don't think I'm any better than many of the first CEOs out there. I've got doubts just like you do. We're all trying to do our best, and I'm here very early. It's only been a year. Yeah. So I'm not jumping to any conclusions. I think it's been a good year for us, and I think finally Uber is starting to emerge as a company that can do good and can do good for its investors as well. But I think that...
And those two can coexist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think people kind of put us on these thrones, and we're just normal people trying to do the best every day. And am I going to be any better than the first CEO? I don't know. And the first CEO did a lot of good here, by the way, right? And the publicity is about some of the negative things, but did a lot of good. And how I do is going to be proven really by my team, and that story hasn't been told yet.
Last question, because we got to wrap, but what do you tell yourself on the hard days? What is your practice? What do you do when everything is extraordinarily stressful and you're kind of in the dark spot? What do you do?
I get on my Peloton bike and I forget about it for about an hour.
Okay.
And then I come in and I say, do your best. Do your best. Be humble and lean on your team. And if I keep focusing on doing the right thing, I know I'm going to make mistakes, but I think I'll do more good than bad, and this company will turn into the potential that we all see.